The Galactic Concord had kept peace among the stars for 12,000 years. It was a union of 347 different species, all bound together by trade, diplomacy, and shared laws. Great empires rose and fell within its structure. Wars were fought and ended. Treaties were signed and broken. But through it all, one rule remained constant across every species, every world. Every corner of the known galaxy. Do not touch the humans. The warning had existed for 300 years. Ever since the small creatures from the blue planet called Earth had first ventured beyond their solar system. At first, the galaxy had laughed at them. They were so fragile. Their bodies broke easily. They lived such short lives, barely 100 years if they were lucky. Their homeworld was mostly covered in water, and they could not even breathe underwater. They seemed like nothing special, but then the stories began to spread. Stories of what happened to those who threatened human colonies. Stories of enemies who simply vanished in the night. Stories of entire fleets that went silent and were never heard from again. The older species, the ones who had seen civilizations rise and fall like waves upon a shore, they listened to these stories and they remembered. And they warned the younger races, leave the humans alone. Commander Lethal of the Karnth Dominion did not believe in warnings. He stood on the bridge of his warship, the crushing tide, and watched the stars pass by through the main viewing window. The Karnth were a proud species. They had conquered 12 star systems in the last 500 years. Their warriors were strong, their ships were fast, and their weapons were feared across the outer territories. Lethal himself had led the destruction of 3 minor civilizations. He had never known defeat. The warnings about humans seemed like foolish superstition to him. He had studied their species. They were weak. They needed machines to survive in space. They needed suits to walk on other planets. They could not see in the dark. They could not hear frequencies beyond a narrow range. They were slow, soft, and breakable. How could such creatures be dangerous? His second in command, a younger officer named Treth, approached him with a data tablet. Commander, we have detected a human vessel entering our patrol zone. A large transport ship. Our scans show approximately 4,000 life signs on board. Lethal's eyes narrowed with interest. 4,000? What kind of ship? A colony vessel, Commander. The registry identifies it as the Stellaris Hope. It appears to be carrying settlers to a new world in the Varan system. A colony ship, unarmed, unprotected, full of humans who could be put to work in the labor camps that powered the Karnth economy. Lethal felt a smile spread across his face. The Karnth had always needed workers for their mining operations. Slaves from conquered worlds filled most of those positions, but there were never enough. Production quotas were always rising. 4,000 new workers would please the High Council greatly. Intercept them, Lethal ordered. Treth hesitated. Commander, the warnings about humans are stories told by cowards, Lethal interrupted. Look at the facts, Treth. They are one ship. We are 50. They have no weapons. We have enough firepower to crack a moon in half. What can they possibly do to us? Treth still looked uncertain, but he was a good soldier. He obeyed orders. Yes, Commander. The crushing tide and its escort fleet changed course to intercept the human vessel. It took only 2 hours to catch up with the slow-moving transport. The Stellaris Hope was a beautiful ship in its own way, long and graceful, built for comfort rather than speed. It had no armor, no shields worth mentioning, and its only weapons were small defensive turrets meant to destroy asteroids. When the Karnth fleet surrounded it, the human captain sent a message. Her name was Sarah Chun, and her voice was calm despite the situation. Karnth vessels, this is Captain Chun of the Stellaris Hope. We are a civilian transport on a peaceful mission. We have no quarrel with your people. Please state your intentions." Bethel laughed at her politeness. He opened a channel and replied, "Human vessel, you have entered Corinth space without permission. Your ship and all passengers are now property of the Corinth Dominion. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your vessel." There was a long pause. When Captain Chun spoke again, her voice had changed. It was harder now, colder. "Commander, I am asking you to reconsider. There are families on this ship, children, elderly. We are not soldiers. We are not a threat to you. Please let us pass in peace." "Your request is denied," Bethel said. "You have 1 minute to comply." Another pause. Then Captain Chun said something that Bethel did not understand at the time. "Commander, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that we asked for peace. I want you to remember that you chose this." Bethel ended the communication and gave the order to board. The humans did not resist. They could not. The Corinth soldiers moved through the ship, separating families, sorting the humans by age and physical condition. The strong ones would go to the mines. The weaker ones would be sold to other species who needed servants. The children would be raised to serve the Dominion. Captain Chen was the last to be taken from her bridge. As the Corinth soldiers dragged her away, she looked directly at Bethel through the video feed. Her eyes held no fear, no despair, no pleading. They held only certainty. "You were warned," she said quietly. "Every species in this galaxy was warned about us. You should have listened." Bethel deleted the recording and filed his report with the High Council. He listed the capture of the Stellaris Hope as a routine seizure of illegal trespassers. He recommended that the humans be distributed among the labor camps as quickly as possible. The High Council praised his initiative. They gave him a medal for his service. 3 weeks later, a single human ship appeared at the edge of Corinth space, and everything changed. The human ship was small. It was barely larger than the Corinth shuttle, with no visible weapons and shields so weak that a single blast could destroy it. It drifted at the edge of Corinth territory like a leaf floating on dark water, making no aggressive moves. Sending no threats. It simply waited. When the Corinth patrol ships approached, the human vessel broadcast a single message on all frequencies. The message was short. "I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Government. I request an audience with your High Council. I come in peace, but I bring a warning." The patrol commander sent word back to the homeworld. The High Council debated for several hours. Some wanted to destroy the ship immediately. Others wanted to capture it and add another human to their labor force. But High Councilor Morith, the oldest and most powerful member of the council, made a different decision. "Let her come," he said, his ancient voice crackling through the council chamber. "Let us hear what warning the humans think they can give us. It will be amusing." The other councilors laughed and agreed. They prepared the Great Hall for a formal audience, not because they respected the humans, but because they wanted to show off their power. They wanted this ambassador to see the might of the Corinth Dominion before they threw her into chains. Ambassador Vasquez arrived alone. She was a small woman by Corinth standards, with dark hair turning gray at the edges and lines around her eyes that spoke of many years and many hardships. She wore a simple black uniform with no decorations, except for a small blue and green pin shaped like her homeworld. She walked into the Great Hall without fear. Thousands of Corinth warriors lined the walls, their weapons ready, their eyes fixed on this tiny creature who dared to enter their sacred space. The High Council sat on raised platforms above her, looking down like gods, judging a mortal. High Councilor Morith leaned forward in his seat. "So, you are the human ambassador. You said you bring a warning. Speak then. Amuse us. Elena Vasquez stood perfectly still. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, carrying easily through the vast chamber. 3 weeks ago, one of your commanders attacked a civilian vessel called the Stellar's Hope. He took 4,000 of my people prisoner. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong. They were settlers, not soldiers. They wanted only to build new homes on a distant world. Moreth waved his hand dismissively. They entered our space without permission. They are now property of the Dominion. This is our law. Your law does not apply to my people, Vasquez replied. We are not your subjects. We are not your slaves. We are citizens of Earth, and we will be treated with respect. Laughter erupted from the counselors. The warriors along the walls made sounds of mockery. The idea that these weak little creatures deserved respect was the funniest thing they had heard in years. But Ambassador Vasquez did not laugh. She did not even smile. She simply waited until the noise died down, and then she continued. I have come to deliver the terms of the United Earth Government. You will return every human prisoner within 30 standard rotations. You will provide the names of every officer involved in the attack. You will pay reparations to the families of those who have been harmed. And you will issue a formal apology to be broadcast across the galaxy. The laughter stopped. Now there was anger in the chamber. High Counselor Moreth rose from his seat, his old body trembling with rage. You dare to make demands of us? You, whose species has existed in space for barely 300 years. You, whose bodies are so weak that a child of our race could crush you with one hand. He spat at her feet, a gesture of ultimate disrespect in Corinth culture. Go back to your masters, little human. Tell them that we reject their terms. Tell them that their people will work in our mines until they die. And tell them that if they send another ship into our space, we will add its crew to our labor force as well. He paused, and a cruel smile crossed his face. In fact, I think your species will make excellent slaves. Once you learn your place, of course. Perhaps we will visit your homeworld soon and teach all of you that lesson. Ambassador Vasquez listened to every word without expression. When Moreth finished, she simply nodded once, as if she had expected nothing different. I see, she said quietly. Then I have one more thing to say. Speak quickly. My patience is at an end. Vasquez looked around the chamber slowly, meeting the eyes of every counselor, every warrior, every servant. She wanted them all to hear what came next. She wanted them all to remember. You were warned, she said. Every species in this galaxy was warned about humanity. The Veloxi learned the lesson 200 years ago when they raided our colony on Proxima. The Thren learned it when they tried to enslave our merchant crews. The Collective of Minds learned it when they attempted to infiltrate our networks. Ask them what happened. Ask them why they no longer exist. She paused, letting her words sink in. We did not spread these warnings ourselves. Other species spread them for us, because they saw what we did to our enemies, and they were afraid. They told everyone they could. Do not touch the humans. Do not harm their people. Do not give them a reason to fight. Moreth laughed again, but it was a nervous sound now. Threats? You think threats will save your people? I do not make threats, Vasquez said. I make promises. And here is my promise to you, High Counselor. What comes next is not war. War is what you understand. War is ships and soldiers and battles that can be won or lost. What comes next is something else entirely. She turned and began walking toward the exit. No one stopped her. No one moved Dot at the door. She paused and looked back one final time. What comes next is consequence. And when it arrives, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that we gave you a choice. I want you to remember that you chose wrong. Then she was gone. The Corinth did not stop her ship as it left their space. They told themselves it was because she was not worth the effort. They told themselves that her words were empty, that humans were weak, that there was nothing to fear. But that night, High Counselor Morath did not sleep well. He dreamed of shadows moving in the darkness, of enemies that could not be seen, of a galaxy that had tried to warn him about something he did not understand. When he woke, he told himself it was just a dream. He was wrong. The Corinth prepared for war in the only way they knew how. Commander Veth Al was placed in charge of the defense fleet. He gathered 500 warships and positioned them in a defensive formation around the Dominion's core worlds. He activated every defense platform, every weapons satellite, every orbital cannon. He put his best warriors on high alert and told them to shoot any human ship on sight. The Corinth had fought many wars over their long history. They knew what invasion looked like. Enemy fleets would come in overwhelming numbers, trying to break through their defenses. There would be massive battles in space, followed by ground invasions on contested worlds. It would be bloody and brutal, but the Corinth were ready. They had the numbers. They had the firepower. They would crush these arrogant humans and teach the galaxy a lesson. They waited for the human fleet to arrive, that it never came. Instead, something else happened. Something the Corinth did not understand and could not fight. The first sign of trouble came 6 days after the ambassador left. A military communications station on the outer edge of Corinth space went silent. When patrol ships arrived to investigate, they found the station intact but empty. The entire crew had vanished without a trace. There were no signs of battle, no damage to the structure, no bodies. The crew was simply gone. The Corinth High Command assumed it was a technical failure. They sent engineers to repair the station and transferred a new crew to replace the missing one. They did not worry too much about it. 3 days later, it happened again. This time, it was a weapons depot on a small moon. The garrison of 200 soldiers disappeared overnight. Their weapons, their vehicles, their supplies were all left behind. Security cameras showed nothing unusual. Motion sensors detected no intruders. It was as if the soldiers had simply walked into the darkness and never returned. Now the Corinth began to worry. High Command sent investigators to both sites, looking for clues. They found something strange at each location, a small piece of paper with words written in the human language. When translated, the message was the same at both sides. It said, "We know where you sleep." Panic began to spread through the military ranks. How had the humans done this? How had they reached so deep into Corinth space without being detected? The defense fleet was still watching the borders, and no enemy ships had passed through. There had been no battles, no alarms, no warnings. The humans had become ghosts. Over the next 4 days, 17 more installations went dark. Military bases, supply depots, communication relays, and sensor stations all lost contact one by one. Each time, the story was the same. No signs of attack, no witnesses, no survivors. Just empty buildings and those terrifying notes. The Corinth soldiers began to fear the darkness. They started sleeping in groups, keeping all lights on at maximum brightness. They jumped at shadows. They heard footsteps in empty corridors. Morale collapsed as rumors spread through the fleet. Some said the humans had developed invisible ships. Others said they had learned to teleport. A few whispered that the humans were not really alive at all, but vengeful spirits from a dead world. The truth was simpler and more frightening. The humans had sent small ships, no bigger than escape pods, carrying teams of their best soldiers. These were not ordinary warriors. They were specialists who had trained their entire lives for exactly this kind of mission. They knew how to move without being seen. They knew how to bypass security systems. They knew how to strike without warning and vanish without a trace. They did not come to fight. They came to terrify. A current captain named Dreth was sleeping in his quarters on a battleship when he woke to find a human woman sitting in the chair beside his bed. She was dressed in black, her face painted with dark colors that made her almost invisible in the dim light. She held a knife in one hand, but she did not attack him. "Good evening," she said in perfect Corinth. "I want you to deliver a message to your commanders." Dreth reached for the alarm button beside his bed. It did not work. He reached for his communicator. It was dead. He opened his mouth to scream for help, but the woman shook her head slowly. "I would not do that if I were you. There are 4 more of my team on this ship right now. Your guards are already sleeping. If I wanted you dead, you would never have woken up." Dreth froze. His heart pounded in his chest. "What do you want?" "I told you. I want you to deliver a message." She stood up and walked to the door. "Tell your commanders that we can reach anyone, anywhere, at any time. Tell them that there is no place in the galaxy where they can hide from us. Tell them that every officer who gave orders to attack the Stellaris Hope has already been marked. We know their names. We know their faces. We know where they live." She paused at the door. "And tell them that this is their last chance. Return our people, or we will take them back ourselves. And we will take much more besides." Then she was gone. Dreth ran to his guards. They were alive but unconscious, drugged with something that left no lasting effects. The security recording showed nothing. The sensors had detected no intruders. The human woman had entered and left one of the most heavily defended ships in the Corinth fleet without leaving any evidence that she had ever been there. When Dreth delivered his message to High Command, the reaction was chaos. Some officers demanded an immediate attack on Earth. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested abandoning the human prisoners and pretending the whole thing had never happened. High Councilor Morith silenced them all. "We will not show weakness," he declared. "We will not bow to these savages. Increase security on all installations. Double the guards. Triple the patrols. They cannot hide forever." But the attacks continued. Supply lines collapsed as transport ships failed to arrive. Communication networks became unreliable as relay stations went dark. Officers began refusing to sleep alone. Some requested transfers to the safest posts available. A few simply deserted, fleeing to other nations. Rather than face the invisible enemy that haunted their dreams, the Corinth had prepared for a war of ships and weapons. They had not prepared for a war of shadows and fear. And somewhere in the darkness, the humans were watching, waiting, and getting closer to their true objective with every passing night. Commander Vethel had not slept in 4 days. He sat in his private quarters aboard the Crushing Tide, surrounded by the finest security systems the Corinth could build. Motion sensors covered every surface. Cameras watched every angle. Armed guards stood outside his door, checking in every 15 minutes. He had even positioned his chair so that his back was against the wall, facing the only entrance. None of it mattered. He was reviewing reports when the lights flickered. Just for a moment, less than a heartbeat, but enough to make his blood run cold. He grabbed his weapon and aimed it at the door, his hands trembling slightly. The door did not open. Nothing moved. The guards outside reported that everything was normal. Vethal forced himself to relax. He was imagining things. The stress was getting to him. He lowered his weapon and turned back to his reports. That was when he noticed the woman sitting across from him. She was human, small and lean, with short black hair and eyes that reflected no light. She wore the same dark clothing that Dreth had described, designed to blend into shadows. She sat perfectly still in the chair opposite his desk, as if she had been there for hours. As if she belonged there. Vethel raised his weapon again, but he did not fire. Something in her expression stopped him. She was not afraid. She was not threatening. She simply watched him with a calm certainty that made him feel like prey. "Who are you?" he demanded. "How did you get in here?" "My name is Captain Yuki Tanaka," the woman replied. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. "And I walked through your door about 10 minutes ago. Your guards were very helpful once they fell asleep." Vatha's finger tightened on the trigger. "I could kill you right now. You could try." She did not move. "But you will not. Because you want to know why I am here. You want to know how we have been doing what we have been doing. You want to understand." She was right. Vethel hated that she was right. He lowered his weapon slightly but did not put it down. "Then explain. How have you been reaching our installations? How have you been taking our soldiers? We have the best defenses in the galaxy." Captain Tanaka smiled. It was not a cruel smile, just a patient one, like a teacher explaining something to a slow student. "Your defenses were designed to stop enemy fleets. Big ships, large weapons, direct assaults. You prepared for the kind of war you understand. But we do not fight that kind of war." She leaned forward slightly. "We fight with patience. We fight with precision. We watch our enemies for weeks before we strike. We learn their routines, their weaknesses, their fears. And when we move so quickly and quietly that they never see us coming." "That is impossible," Bethel said. "No species can do what you have done. Many species have said that. They were all wrong." Tanaka stood up slowly, keeping her hands visible. "I did not come here to fight you, Commander. I came to deliver a message and an offer." "What offer?" "The same one we gave your High Council 3 weeks ago. Return our people. Identify those responsible. Pay reparations. Apologize." She paused. "Your council rejected these terms. I am giving you the chance to accept them personally." Bethel laughed bitterly. "Even if I wanted to accept, I could not. The prisoners have been distributed to labor camps across 3-star systems. It would take months to gather them all. Would it?" Tanaka reached into her pocket. Bethel tensed, but she only pulled out a small data chip. She placed it on his desk. "Check your labor camps, Commander. Check all of them." Something cold settled in Bethel's stomach. He reached for his communicator and contacted the nearest labor camp. No response. He tried another camp. Silence. A third. Nothing. "What have you done?" he whispered. "What we said we would do," Tanaka replied. "We took our people back. Every man, woman, and child from the Stellaris Hope is now aboard our ships, heading home. Your camps are empty. Your guards are unharmed but unconscious. We left no bodies behind because we are not murderers." She paused, and her expression hardened. "But the overseers who hurt our people, the ones who beat them and starved them and worked them until they collapsed, those we dealt with differently. They answered for what they did. They will not hurt anyone again." Vadal stared at her. The scale of what she was describing was impossible. Those camps were spread across thousands of light years. They were guarded by tens of thousands of soldiers, rescuing 4,000 prisoners from all of them, without triggering a single alarm, without losing a single life on either side. It should have taken an army. It should have taken years. The humans had done it in less than 3 weeks. How? He asked. It was all he could manage. "Because you made a mistake," Tanaka said. "The same mistake every enemy of humanity makes. You looked at us and saw weak creatures with short lives and fragile bodies. You assumed that because we die easily, we must fear death." She shook her head. "We do not fear death, Commander. We have never feared it. We fear failure. We fear leaving our people behind. We fear giving up when there is still a chance to win. Death is just the price we pay for victory, and we've always been willing to pay it. She pointed at the data chip on his desk. That contains footage of every installation we infiltrated during this operation. It also contains the locations of 12 more facilities that we identified but did not touch. Power stations, weapons factories, command centers. We could have destroyed them. We chose not to. Why? Because destruction was never our goal. Our goal was to bring our people home. We have done that. Now we are giving you a chance to end this before it goes any further. Level picked up the data chip and held it in his hand. It was so small, so light, yet it represented the complete failure of everything he had built. His military career, his reputation, his pride, all of it broken by a species he had dismissed as weak. "If I agree to your terms," he said slowly, "what happens next?" "We leave. Your ships remain intact. Your worlds remain untouched. The galaxy sees that the Corinth are capable of wisdom, not just strength." Tanaka walked toward the door. "But if you refuse, if your council continues to fight, then we will return. And next time, we will not be so gentle." She paused at the door and looked back at him one final time. "You have 3 days to decide, Commander. Use them wisely." Then she was gone, as silently as she had arrived. Bethel sat alone in his quarters for a long time, holding the data chip and thinking about everything he had believed about humans. About war, about strength. He had been wrong about all of it. The Galactic Concord had not called an emergency assembly in over 2,000 years. The last one had been held to address a plague that threatened to spread across 100 worlds. Before that, there had been a war between two major powers that risked stabilizing the entire galaxy. These were the kinds of events that justified bringing together representatives from every civilized species in known space. Now, for the first time in living memory, the great assembly hall on the neutral world of Concordia was filled once again. Representatives from 347 species sat in their designated sections, arranged in a massive spiral that rose toward a domed ceiling painted with the stars of 1,000 homeworlds. Translators hummed as hundreds of languages were converted into a common tongue that all could understand. At the center of the hall, on a raised platform visible from every seat, stood a single chair. It was a chair of judgment, used only when someone was to answer for crimes against the Concord itself. High Counselor Morath sat in that chair. He had not come willingly. The Corinth Dominion had delivered him as a peace offering, hoping to satisfy the humans and end the crisis before it destroyed their empire completely. The other counselors had voted unanimously to sacrifice him, blaming him for the decisions that had brought ruin upon their people. Morath looked small now, stripped of his robes of office, his proud bearing broken by weeks of fear and failure. He stared at the floor, refusing to meet the eyes of the assembled representatives who watched him with a mixture of contempt and fascination. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked to the speaker's platform at the edge of the judgment circle. She looked older than she had 3 weeks ago, tired from the strain of events. But her voice was strong and clear when she began to speak. "Members of the Galactic Concord, we are gathered here because a warning was ignored. For 300 years, since humanity first ventured beyond our solar system, we have asked only to live in peace alongside the other species of this galaxy. We have traded fairly. We have honored our agreements. We have respected the laws and customs of our neighbors." She paused, looking around the vast chamber. "In return, we asked for only one thing, that our people be treated with dignity, that they not be attacked, enslaved, or killed simply because we are younger and weaker than other species. This was not an unreasonable request. Most civilizations understood this and honored it." Her eyes found Morath. The Corinth Dominion did not. A murmur ran through the assembly. Everyone knew the basic facts of what had happened. But hearing them stated so plainly in this sacred space gave them new weight. High Counselor Morith ordered the capture of a civilian vessel carrying 4,000 of my people. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong. They were taken from their ship, separated from their families, and sent to labor camps where they were treated as property. When we sent an ambassador to negotiate for their release, he rejected our terms and threatened to enslave our entire species. Vasquez held up a data chip, the same one that Captain Tanaka had left with Commander Vethal. This contains recordings of our response. I will not play them here. The details are known to those who need to know them. What matters is this: we recovered our people. All of them. And we did it without destroying a single current world. Without killing anyone who did not directly harm our citizens. Without starting a war that would have cost millions of lives on both sides. She lowered the chip. We could have done more. We could have burned their fleet. We could have shattered their economy. We could have made an example so terrible that no species would ever dare touch humanity again. That path was open to us, and many of my people demanded that we take it. Her voice softened. But that is not who we are. We do not seek conquest. We do not enjoy destruction. We did only what was necessary to protect our people and bring them home safely. Nothing more. She turned to face the full assembly. I stand before you today not to demand punishment or revenge. The Corinth have already punished themselves by delivering this man to face your judgment. They have agreed to pay reparations. They have issued formal apologies. They have done everything we originally asked. A surprised murmur ran through the hall. Many had expected humanity to demand blood, to use this moment to establish dominance over their former enemies. The fact that they were satisfied with justice alone confused those who thought strength was measured only in destruction. I stand before you today to renew a warning, Vasquez continued. Not a threat, but a simple statement of fact. Humanity did not come to the stars seeking war. We came seeking connection, discovery, and wonder. We wanted to meet new species, learn new things, and build a future where all intelligent life could grow and prosper together. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of 300 years of human history among the stars. But we learned long ago, on our own world, that peace must be protected. We learned that the gentle are not safe unless they can defend themselves. We learned that those who cannot fight will eventually be conquered by those who can. Every nation on Earth that forgot this lesson is now dust and memory, their names known only to historians. She pointed at Marth, still sitting broken in the judgment chair. Let this day remind the galaxy of what we are. Humanity does not start wars, but we finish them. We do not strike first, but we strike last. And those who harm our people, who ignore our mercy, who mistake our kindness for weakness, do not survive to make that mistake twice. She stepped back from the platform. That is all I have to say. The assembly sat in silence for a long moment. Then, one by one, the representatives began to vote on the punishment for Morith and a future relationship between the Concord and humanity. The votes were unanimous. Morith was sentenced to spend the rest of his life on a prison world, stripped of all titles and honors. The Corinth Dominion was placed under observation for a century, forbidden from expanding or making war without Concord approval. And humanity was officially recognized as a protected sovereign species, with all the rights and privileges that status carried. But the most important outcome was not written in any treaty or recorded in any official document. It was something simpler, something that spread through the galaxy faster than any message could travel. In every language, on every world, from the oldest civilizations to the youngest, the warning was renewed. Parents told children. Teachers told students. Leaders told their people. The words were different depending on the species. But the meaning was always the same. On the Veluxy homeworld, where the ruins of a once great civilization still stood as monuments to their mistake, elders whispered to young ones, "Remember what happened to us. Remember why we fell." Among the Thren, who had rebuilt their society from ashes after challenging humanity 200 years ago, the warning was carved into the walls of their most sacred temple: honor the humans, fear their resolve. Even the machine minds of the collective, who had lost 3/4 of their network when they tried to infiltrate human systems, added a new directive to their core programming: avoid conflict with biological designation, human, survival probability insufficient. And throughout the galaxy, in cantinas and council chambers, in schools and shipyards, in every place where beings gathered to share knowledge and stories, the warning echoed: they are small, they are fragile, they live such short lives, but do not touch them, do not harm them, do not give them a reason to fight, because those who strike humans do not survive. The colonists of the Stellaris Hope eventually reached their destination. They built their settlement on a green world with blue oceans, named it New Hope, and raised their children to look up at the stars without fear. And every year, on the anniversary of their rescue, they gathered together and told the story of what happened, so that their descendants would never forget. They would never forget that the galaxy had warned everyone about humanity, and they would never forget why.